released on December 2001 in Japan, and then a year later in the US. Nintendo would release its add-on for its Game Boy Advance known as the Nintendo eReader. It was promoted as being a scanner that would allow the player to scan a variety of card sets to play classic games from NES to the Game & Watch era, unlock levels and items for other Game Boy Advance titles, and even unlock additional content for some of Nintendo's other titles like Animal Crossing. It was in a time where content was locked behind paid DLC was a new concept, but Nintendo was one of the earliest pioneers to do it way before other companies did. Sony would later capitalize on this idea by releasing its card game for the PS3 that would utilize its camera technology, known as the Eye of Judgment, released in 2007. The e-reader wouldn't be on the market very long in the US as it was discontinued in 2004 due to poor sales, but over in Japan it was a bigger hit due to the popularity of collecting cards as one of the country's biggest pastimes, with trading card games like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Cardfight Vanguard. While the technology isn't anything to write home about, it was a pretty unique way to get games and DLC into people's hands without having to connect to the internet or spend a whole bunch of money, way before the days of Steam and other online services. The e-reader was one of my favorite things about the Game Boy Advance as it allowed me to rekindle my love for retro games, even way before getting physical copies of older games from other systems. But there are 3 items that we wanted to cover over in this video that do use the e-reader, but are among some of the most collected upon and sought after cards of all time. On this edition of The Uncommon Valley, we take a look at 3 different hard-to-find items that are highly collected upon to e-reader collectors worldwide, as we dive into the world of rare e-reader oddities. Known in Japan as the Infinite Ticket, the Eon Ticket would be used in games like Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, along with modernized remakes on the 3DS in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. While the ticket itself is a legit item that can be obtained in-game, it had to be downloaded via a promotional event at various locations worldwide, or using the special print physical card that was given out to Nintendo Power subscribers when Volume 173 was released, along with a very limited release at Toys R Us stores. Over in Mexico, however, the ticket was given to attendees at that year's Electronic Game Show in October 23rd through the 26th. The ones who attended the event had to bring either a copy of Ruby or Sapphire with them, and then a Nintendo employee would use an e-reader attached to a game link cable to transfer the item to the player's cartridge. There would also be an event in Spain known as the Eon Ticket Tour, which took place during the month of December on the 3rd, and then from the 20th through the 30th except for Christmas Day. The card itself would work as a mystery event, and would allow the player to travel to the southern island where they will come across one of 2 legendary Pokemons, Latios and Latias. The choice of Pokemon would be different if the person had either of the 2 cards, but if the owner had a copy of Emerald, it would allow the player to choose which one instead. On top of this, both legendaries would be holding a special item in the form of Soul Dew, which was a key item used to boost special attack and special defense stats of Latias and Latios. However, the effects of Soul Dew would be different during Gen 7 as it would instead boost Psychic and Dragon-type moves. After the player battles either legendaries in Ruby and Sapphire, the player will no longer have access to the island. This, however, did not apply to players who own copies of Emerald, as they would be allowed back on the island no matter the outcome. Though as a nice added feature to owners of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, Norman will be reminded about how they saw this same exact ticket around 11 years ago, A nice nod to the game being released in 2003 to when the remakes were released in 2014. Since it's been 18 years by the time this video is out, the card has become highly sought after amongst both Pokemon and e-reader collectors, with majority of auctions for the Nintendo Power Magazine with copies of the cards intact going for anywhere above $200. Talk about one expensive investment just to be able to capture a couple of legendaries. On April 12, 2003, at the Baker Hangar in Santa Monica, California, Nickelodeon would host their annual Kids' Choice Awards show, which was featured by the talk show host of the time, Rosie O'Donnell. The theme that Nick went with for that year was video games. They morphed the inside of the hangar into what they would call the Nickelodeon Game Station, where the entire stage would resemble into their version of what the inside of a video game would look like. Nickelodeon wanted to make sure that that year's event was an even more special one, so they teamed up with Nintendo to make special edition bundles as part of the contest. The question that would be asked is, how could someone obtain this set? Console Variations interviewed someone who was fortunate enough to be one of the lucky few to have in their possessions one of the remaining bundles. In the article, they exclaimed that in order to win one of these, you had to go to Nick's website and play a game to win a GBA SP with a bunch of goodies in and with it. After winning, Nintendo would take down your info and send you items provided in the specially made box with the following items: a standard silver GBA SP with an e-reader, a couple of e-reader card packs, and a specially made Kids' Choice Award game card for the chance to win a grand prize of VIP backstage passes for the show. We attempted to contact the person who still owns this set, but unfortunately they were not able to get him back in time with us. But judging from the instructions attached to the GBA SP, along with the photo that was on the opposite side of the card, the game would resemble more of a Flappy Bird type style game where you would collect various icons while dodging various hazards in the form of slime. While it's been 5 years ago that this article was written, there have been no other updates at this time of any additional info for the elusive bundle. But despite the very minimal info provided, the bundle itself is one of the few pieces of rare Game Boy merchandise that was a part of Nickelodeon's history. One that not many would have knew existed had websites like Console Variations not covered this long-lost treasure, and would have long been forgotten in the annals of time itself. When people think of one-of-a-kind rare Nintendo items, many usually think of a game or console variant, or possibly something that has never been shown to the general public before. But every now and then we've covered over items that was never meant to be preserved over time, and almost would have all been destroyed and completely forgotten about until a former Nintendo employee rediscovered what was quite possibly the rarest Nintendo e-reader card ever distributed out to the public. On the surface, it has resembled what looks like just a normal piece of Foxbox merch advertising the Kirby animated series, but this has been regarded as being one of the hardest to find e-reader cards to date. When people attended E3 in 2002, Nintendo wanted to promote the release of the then new e-reader by handing out special edition packs containing various cards. These cards in question would include Hop-Pip and Pichu, a variant of the Game & Watch game Manhole, and the Kirby prize card itself. There are 3 different versions of this card that was randomly put into packs, and each item was unique compared to the others. While the official number of packs is not available at this time, it is confirmed that there was a total of 100 second place prize cards and over 10 first place prize cards that were given out. The former employee that we interviewed was fortunate enough to have one of the few remaining first prize cards. Was originally with the company from the time of the Wii U all the way to the launch of the Switch. They would go on to describe how it was they gotten their hands on the elusive, hard-to-find card by saying, "It was total happenings put into motion about 9 months before I left Nintendo. We were starting a remodel of the office space and all the managers, space owners, were asked to start getting rid of things to reduce space needs. All the first-gen Pokemon cards had been shifted through prior to my arrival, but there were bunches of other cards as well, including ereader. By that summer, I had a good idea of how much there was, and then the order came in to recycle all of it. It made me literally sick to think of it, so I asked if I could take some of it rather than destroy it all. The answer, I don't care what happens to it, it needs to be gone. Well, I boxed up stacks of paper manuals and booklets, and those cards were in the stash, among a box of loose cards. They were packed away for like 2 years in my garage until I started getting requests from collectors about manuals and what I had. By the time I got to the cards, I figured it was time to go through them and organize them along with the e-reader training manuals I had. That's when it all started, and the one scanned as a first place. It likely came back to my department from E3 that year as giveaway swag. When they found out that they had one of the few remaining cards that had been avoided from being destroyed for good, reports about it began surfacing online from sites like Kotaku and Nintendo Life. With them having little to no need for it, they had originally put it on eBay with it starting to rack up bids at over 1,000, and then after the final day bringing in the total to $10,600. Making it not only the rarest, but quite possibly the most valuable Nintendo card ever recorded. The only other bit of info that was never mentioned or confirmed about was what the grand prize was for those who did in fact win first prize, where the word was that people who did in fact win were gifted the special edition Pokemon New York Game Boy Advance. That's where they went on to say this about the confirmation on the prize itself. Sadly, there's only 2 people in Nintendo that would confirm the prizes for that year or promo. One would be Don James, no way is he gonna talk about it. The other would be an employee that was on my team, and he's a lockbox until he retires. I had a couple of coworkers on my team that have huge backstock collections of new in-box Nintendo items, from employee garage sales that it will blow people's minds when they retire and start selling some off. Holy grails that I know people are after. There's no telling how many are still floating around out there. But the existence of any remaining packs still exists, with some of them even being graded and being offered for thousands. But it's incredible to see just one avoiding of being ripped apart and never have seen the light of day by those who want to preserve gaming history. Thank you again to Anderson Central over on Twitter for taking the time to answer our questions for the video. And thank you for watching The Uncommon Valley as we look to the past into the present.